Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the only live Monday through Friday lacrosse talk show on the planet. I am your host, Michael Karvelis, and this is Daily Dive. It is Wednesday, May the 6th, 2026, and this show begins now. For the record, yesterday was May the 5th, and I told you guys because Monday was the 4th and we do our review show, I was like, we can't do May the 4th. So yesterday, I called it Jedi or Sith, and we did our player thing, and I realized it's called Revenge of the 5th. So I apologize if I offended the community, but I feel like I knew that and I just forgot it, but we still had fun with that segment regardless. On today's show, we're going to talk to Cooper Perkins, the San Diego Seals play-by-play. He just is fresh off of a Game 2 where the Seals forced a Game 3. We'll talk to Cooper about the Seals season so far and how they can win Game 3. We will then get to my reactions to the NLL Awards Finalists. Again, I cannot unveil my picks because I got to vote, but I will react to people that made the list that I did not have on mine, and of course the two awards that we didn't vote on anyways, which is Executive of the Year and Teammate of the Year. And finally, what next? For the Philadelphia Wings, we're going to start our teams that missed the playoffs. How can they get there next year? We're doing that in the final segment. Before we get to our guest, Cooper Perkins, we want to let you know this show is presented by, oh, wow, I can't breathe. The NLL merchandise found at natalkradio.us/NLL. Head there now. It takes United States shoppers. You can actually buy the NLL stuff. Canada, guys, you got to go somewhere else. But if you are from Canada, you do find yourself on Amazon, that link. You can shop elsewhere, but whatever. United States residents can shop the NLL stuff, though, if that helps you. All righty. Let's now bring in a man who is, like I said, fresh off of a Game 2 call where the Seals forced a Game 3. Let's bring in awesome broadcaster Cooper Perkins. Welcome back, dude.
Hey, buddy. It's good to be here. It's been a while.
I was going to say, is this first time this year? It has to be.
It is. Yeah. You know, we've wrapped up our broadcasting schedule and we've got our first appearance. So that perfectly aligns.
Hey, good for you, by the way. Another successful year in the booth. I know you wear a bunch of hats, but we appreciate you as always. Before we get into the Seals, the Nick Gosello thing cracked me up because I know like a few weeks ago he had planned to have that day off and then sat right in front of you guys. Can you take us from your perspective how that went? Because that was awesome, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, back in like October when we committed to the dates that we could work or couldn't work, right. Nick specifically said he could not work that date. And then fast forward to the middle of March, and I was going to miss the next game. So like, oh, I guess, I'll see you whenever. And yeah, here we go. And he texts me. He says, oh, I'll see you, you're working the April game though, right? I'm like, yeah. Like, all right, I'll see you then. I'm like, okay, cool. Must have changed his plans. He's Nick. He very regularly just changes whatever he's doing. It's not out of the realm of possibility that his plans changed. So I didn't think anything of it. Then the week rolled around. Our usual meetings get scheduled. The emails go out. The invites go out. And there's no Nick Gosello. There's an Eric Law, who obviously I've worked with and know very well. And I thought, well, he said he was going to work it, but also not surprising that things would change again or he'd back out and just not do it. So whatever, fine. So I thought nothing of it all week. And then the day of the game, I'm driving to the arena and I get a text from him that was super odd. And, he's Nick. Everything's a bit. Everything's a joke all the time. So I just kind of ignored it.
Same.
Sitting at shoot around then with Eric, and Nick calls. And I'm like, what do you want? Like, what are you even doing? And he hangs up on me before he can answer anything. So I think really he's just in rare form today. And then I leave shoot around, go get something to eat. And I'm driving to a different part of San Diego. And I see on my phone, like, you know how when your phone's got like the map up, you see an incoming call from like whatever name. I see incoming call Nick Gosello, and I'm like, oh, weird. And then it goes away, and I missed it. So I'm like, all right, whatever. I get to where I'm going. I open my phone, and I got 3 missed text messages and 4 missed calls from him. The texts are like, Can't wait to see you. I'm in room whatever. We have to go to the sauna and get a sweat in, blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking that I'm sitting like, what the hell are you talking about? And then it hits me. I'm like, oh my God, did you fly out to San Diego thinking that you're working this game without any evidence to suggest that you would be working this game? I heard nothing from him for like an hour and a half. I guess he was at lunch with like a work client. And he calls me and he's like, hey, what's up? I'm like, did you read any of the text that I just sent you? He's like, no, I just saw you called me, so I called you back. I'm like, all right. What are you doing? Where are you? He's like, I'm going to 7-Eleven. When you say you're going to 7-Eleven, where are you going to 7-Eleven? He's like, oh, by the hotel in Little Italy. I'm like, you are an idiot. You are an absolute idiot. Because this is not a game that you're working. No one thinks you're going to be here. Eric lies here. This is hilarious. Ended up being a funny thing. Turns out Nick had changed his availability and told no one. And so that was just like a telekinetic attempt that failed at trying to communicate that he was available. And so he showed up. Eric was already scheduled. And I kind of made fun of him. I was like, you realize that we had meetings this week and you didn't for 1 second stop and think it was weird that no one reached out to you about anything at any point at all. Like you were not involved in anything at all this week. He's like, no, I just kind of breezed right through those red lights. So he ended up getting to have a fun game, sat in front of us, had a bunch of beers and cutwaters and some pizza and whatnot. And it was a fun game. And Eric's great to work with, so no complaints. Yeah. But very, very fun situation, very funny.
You know, first of all, for people that don't know, I meant to tell you I was going to ask you that question. I forgot to tell you. So you telling that story from your POV was amazing, by the way. People know I've been vocal about how I feel like you guys are awesome. Eric Law, also great analyst. So shout out to him as well. Pat Garquar, I was thinking this in real time. Does Nick book his did Joe Tsai pick up his tab, hopefully? Do we know?
So when I don't know. When we fly, whether it's Nick into San Diego, me to Las Vegas, Eric, whoever doing whatever, it's an option. Either we can book it ourselves, or the team can book it, and so it's not in any way out of the realm of normalcy that he would be booking his own flights. I don't know if they reimbursed him. He said it was the cheapest flight of the year, so if he had to eat $200 to come have a fun weekend in San Diego, I feel like that's a small price to pay. But sure. I do not know. I don't have a final answer for that. I think if he's a self-respecting man, he wouldn't ask to be reimbursed and would just recognize that that was a big L that you got to take and just move on from it. But I don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
Who was it? Haley L. Who was with y'all on the reporter side?
That was Haley. Yeah.
Because see, my dumb self again, not planning for this question. I should have pulled up the picture from her thing where it's like looking up at him, and that was incredible. All right, I'm done with that. Oh, Pat also asked, well, I also like Nickelback, to be fair. He says you're an unrated Canadian because there's two people. I've always liked, I didn't realize it was a thing to hate them until like I got mad that was a thing. So there you go. Are they Canadian?
I mean, come on now. I mean, that's one of those things where like there's this revisionist history where everyone likes to pretend that Nickelback wasn't cool between 2000 and 2005. And they were everywhere. They were on every radio station. I'm sorry, riding in the car as a kid. That's absolutely on the playlist. And sue me for liking some divorced dad rock. Nickelback still goes super hard. And I will gladly wear that badge. I hadn't seen that tweet from Pat, so that's funny. I was completely unaware of that. I'm glad someone heard that, and it wasn't just me and Eric talking to nobody.
There, you and Eric and you and Nick have some all-time conversations, especially if there is a blowout. Thank y'all for that, by the way. Now let's go ahead.
Sorry. I got to give the Rock fans something to like me for because they really just don't care for me, and it's funny. Come on, man. I mean, your team's getting the piss kicked out of them in a playoff game, and I look like I'm, a homer, which the reality is you're going to sound like a homer when you're in the home building 100% of the time, unless you're specifically there for the away team. Like, it's just louder. You have to get louder because the building's loud. Like, and it's neither here nor there. I mean, also everyone understands how the NLL structure works. Like, broadcasters are team employees first and foremost. Like that. So,
of course,
we're not trying to be homers in any way, but like Toronto fans. Come on, what are you talking about?
You're not trying to be Eric Collins, but you kind of are.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a volume thing. It has to be, and whatever. Sorry.
You screaming yes for James Barclay's goal was slightly. I love the call for the record, but I was like, okay, I get that part of it. That was a nice Seals touch to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not intended to be a Seals touch. Like, you've watched 100 basketball games, and a shot going in is just yes or bang, right? And like you wouldn't contextualize that based on who's calling it. We all are seeing the same play, right? We're all seeing the same play. It's a breakaway. We know who's going to shoot. The question is it a goal, yes or no? You know what I'm saying when the answer is yes, right? I mean, so I don't know. It's stylistic. You don't have to like it. It doesn't matter. I don't care.
I love it. Game 2, for the record, we can just touch on that one. One person I had to defend you against, they were talking about, this broadcast has been so like one-sided. I'm like, for me, y'all called it. The refs, they apparently love to call majors. I found out, like, there was 3 of them. I think 2 of them went for the Seals, 1 of them went in favor of the Rock. So what was that game like? Because that game got pretty physical, and the Seals were able to run away with it and fend off the stuff in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everyone just needs to stop talking about the refs because no one likes them. Like, it doesn't matter what team. Like, that's not true. Not no one likes them. Like, people respect them and appreciate them. And like, we, at least in the media, recognize how hard their jobs are. And like, I don't know. I feel like there have been different situations throughout this year, the playoffs no exception, where people want to just like tar and feather the refs for things that, like, yeah, did they make mistakes? Sure. Sometimes are they inconsistent? Sure. But like, what are we doing?
It's like a coping thing, in my opinion. It's
right. Yeah, and I mean, it's also an evergreen way of saying our team isn't responsible for their own failures. And like, you're the Rock here, right? You did not score on the power play, and you didn't have a shoot around that morning to practice the power play. I don't know if that correlates in any way, but like, why are you like, point the finger upstairs? Like, don't. It just doesn't make sense to me. And like, no one is happy with the officiating in the playoffs. Like, no coach is happy, whether it goes for them or against them. Like, they're always thinking of the call they didn't get. And so as fans, like, that's not why Toronto didn't score for 35 minutes. Like that. It probably didn't help to some extent, but like, they had multiple power plays in that window and they didn't do anything with them. So
that was most of the first half, right? Like, they scored and like they didn't score again for like the third.
They scored a minute and 17 seconds into the game and not again until the third.
Phew. Gross. What we got to talk about this kid. What's his name? Wow, Cameron Dunkerley. I've talked about it all year. Like, me and Pat did a segment called Greggy's Grinder based on his old thing, and I always look towards the goalies because there's the mental. Like, Riley Hutchcraft, he never knows when he has to go in, but he knows he's going to have to. Nick Demude knows Deacon Knott's lurking. Aiden Walsh is always thinking about, well, what if I'm not Del Bianco, but I'm also good. For Cameron Dunkerley to not have been there, I don't think all year, like playing, to suddenly be thrown in that fire, and not just be thrown in there, but be awesome game 1 and be electric in game 2. How is that for you as a broadcaster? Like, there's no way.
Yeah, I think that I am as guilty as most people of taking a fairly reasonable approach to thinking about games beforehand. And like, I was talking to Eric before the game, and like, in sports, you can never say team has no chance, right? It's not true. Things happen, upsets happen all the time. But what is really common, and lacrosse, like football, like basketball, there are scenarios that show up where you have 2 teams playing against each other, and one team might have 100 different pathways to victory, and the other team might have 3. And this was game 2 was one of those games where like the Seals had 3 and the Rock had 100. One of those 3 was Cam Dunkerley playing insane. And like, Eric was funny. We got off the air and he's like, if you gave me 100 guesses as to how this game was going to go, this might have been 100 if it even cracked the list. I'm like, yeah, no, I feel you. So, credit to Cameron Dunkerley. I think we all have forgotten to some extent that he's a starter in this league, multi-year starter in this league. He's pretty good. He's had some great moments. In fact, the best game of his career prior to game 2 had been against San Diego. So it's no surprise that Patrick Merrill has a really high degree of confidence in him. And, it's interesting because there are always scenarios when you're around a team a lot. And this is not something that's unique to San Diego. I've been around professional tems in other sports. I've been around college teams in other sports. They always will say the most positive things possible, but most of the time they're lies. What was interesting going into this game is that the confidence level you could tell was legitimately genuine. And
Yeah.
I don't think that means that they wouldn't rather have Ulrich in if he was healthy, right? Because those two things can coexist. You'd still rather have your number one, but you can still be super confident in your number two. And so I thought that that was interesting because in my experience, usually the coach speak that you get about, the confidence in a backup quarterback or a backup whatever is not genuine.
You can tell.
But what's interesting with Patrick Merrill, and this is one of the great credits to him, he is unintentionally at times and intentionally at times the most transparent coach I think I've ever been around, because he's a person that is really like feelings forward and doesn't. Yeah, and because of that, like you can really tell when he means what he's saying. And when we talked to him about dunks before the game, it kind of changed my perspective a little bit on how I thought the game was going to go. I don't think I'd be lying to you if I told you that I think that it changed to, I wasn't surprised by what happened, because that's not true. But when we talked to Patty and talked to him about dunks specifically, his confidence was unambiguously honest. It was very real. And that made me think that that probably is contagious around the clubhouse and the dressing room, because that's usually how teams work, right? You take on the personality of your coach to some extent or another. And I think it showed. This team was super, super, super confident. And he reinforced the reasons for their confidence. The defense and the offense clearly felt the sense of peace having him back there. And I think they also picked him up reasonably well. They didn't have a ton of bad breakdowns. There weren't a ton of situations where, while he did stand on his head making 20 straight saves at one point, they probably didn't need all 20 of them. We probably needed 16 or 17 of those. But, to your point, I don't think that they necessarily would want this to be the same situation in game 3, but I don't think they're in any way afraid if that's what happens.
I told people, I think it was Monday when I talked to Pat and Captain, obviously game 3, do or die, you want your guy, but it's not a bad. I told Pat it makes the decision, you can pull the trigger faster if Aurelier is giving stuff up early. You're like, Knockly wasn't too bad last weekend. Just makes you think about it more. Good for him. In the post game, he was also awesome. He was very humble, very appreciative of the moment, which I loved. So.
I mean, he's a great kid, and I really have barely gotten to know him at all, which is to some extent a mistake on my part, but you can only allocate so much time to so many people, but it was very much aligned with everything that I've been told about him and everything that I've learned about him secondhand, that was really true to who he's been for this team for what's now 21 games going on 22 games. And just because he hasn't had a lot of time between the pipes during game action doesn't mean he's not a super involved part of the team, be it in shoot-arounds and practices, on the plane, in the hotel, at dinners, whatever it is, right? Like, he's still just as much a member of the team. And that's something that we as media people don't get to see. And just because we're media people that, we look at box scores, we look at what we see on Friday and Saturday, there is a lot of stuff that goes on outside of our purview. And this is a really good illustration of there is usually more to teams than meets the eye. And Cameron Dunkerley not just succeeding on the floor in a game situation, but unsurprisingly doing so to the opinion of his teammates really does reinforce that's a special group. That's a special team. It's a special player. And, whatever that means in terms of game 3 and beyond is kind of only mildly important. But, really, really humble. And I think his perspective more than anything was admirable. Right? That it was something that we all could listen to as people with different walks of life and different areas where we face pressure. And he parroted the things that I think all of us know intuitively to be true, but in a way that was very honest and forthcoming. And I thought that, you don't have to like it. You don't have to be a Seals fan. You don't have to be a lacrosse fan to be kind of inspired by it. I thought that was really one of the great things that sports offer us. And we were blessed this weekend to get to have it in the NLL.
2 more things about Dunkerley. One of them you just talked about was the teammate of the year thing after this weekend. We know, we voted, you had an awards vote too. We voted for the awards before the playoffs. I would assume the PA did that too with their teammate. And this guy popping up was freaking awesome, dude.
Yeah, it's good timing. I got to be honest with you. I think that is the dumbest award to have media vote on.
Yeah.
Who are we to say?
Oh, I think he wasn't on there.
Right, you know what I mean? Like, who are we as the media to say who the teammate of the year is? Like,
correct.
I shouldn't have a vote in that. I don't know.
Well,
I know
thankfully we
some
didn't,
things
so.
about some people, and I know who the answer might not be. But like, that's it to me. Like, that's just so silly. Yeah, you probably want more than 3 votes, I guess, on it. But like, let the players decide that one and leave us out of it.
Well, I think they do that one, but like, but for not like sportsmanship is when we do vote. I'm like, well, wait a minute, I don't really like that.
Right, same thing. Yeah, it's like,
That's
what are we talking about? Yeah, like
I
I'm
think
not on the
Jeff
floor.
Teet's a nice guy. I don't know.
Yeah, and like that's also you know,
might be good for that one.
Yeah, but at the same time though, like we're going to self-select based on who the positive interactions are with, and that's not really indicative of how a guy is as a sportsman, right? Like,
correct.
I've run into situations in my 5 years calling games in the league where we've had very high-profile guys like deny us interviews on the day of the game. I don't want to say that guy's a bad sportsman because he was unhelpful to the broadcast, because that might not be true. It's just me having sour grapes. Right. I'm just having sour grapes, being unhappy that we've been turned away, and I don't think we should be. But like, that doesn't mean he's not a good teammate or not a good sportsman on the floor. Like, so again, why are we voting on this? I don't get it, but whatever.
We'll be all right. The funny thing about Duncan, last thing on him, again, my research is terrible too. January 9th, apparently, were you on that game too with the Rock Seals?
I was, yeah.
He started the game.
He didn't play well.
Yeah, well, I mean, you gave up 12 goals. I mean, I just couldn't believe like that this was the 3rd time he's seen them, and we kind of like, I know you didn't forget that, but it was kind of like interesting how we just forgot that part. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is interesting how the overwhelming majority of his playing time this year has come against Toronto now on 3 separate occasions.
Not bad.
You know, maybe that's a good thing for him. He's gotten an opportunity to learn and see some stuff, and maybe that's the preferred situation. If you're the backup goalie, right, and you're in the playoffs, you're starting games for the first time, and it's against the one team who you've actually seen in competitive action. Maybe that helped him out. I don't know.
And
that'd be an interesting
starter shows that he has a game plan for that team. So
that would be a really interesting question to ask him. Is like, the fact that this is the only team that you've really played against this year, has that been a benefit to your preparation and your expectation of what you're seeing between the pipes? I would guess maybe, but I honestly don't know. It's an interesting question.
Pat, I mean, the inquiring minds would like to know, do you know why they skipped it? Like, is there a reason? Because they said they got there early Saturday.
I don't explicitly know why.
Good for you.
It was not something that was announced. We were there and they just didn't come. So I don't know if that was a day of decision or a day before decision. I know that they might not have had as easy of a time getting into town as teams typically do because of the short turnaround on things and how that all comes together with booking flights like super late in the cycle, and obviously like airfare being crazy expensive because of oil and all that stuff. I don't know the details on this. I don't want to speculate. It very well just could have been we were confident or guys were banged up. I don't know. I don't want, like, it's a really good question that, Pat, Teddy, Ashley, calling game 3, maybe they can ask Matt Sawyer. But I don't have an answer on that one. And I don't want to say exactly what I do know, other than it's not quite as simple as both teams showed up at the same time. One chose to shoot around and one didn't. But yeah, if you read the comments, there's some truth to what Pat's saying.
Okay.
I don't want to say it, though.
How long of a bus ride is that, for the record? Do you know?
It's at least 2 hours.
I thought it was okay. I was thinking 8. 2 is way better. Good for you.
It's not bad, but that's also, yeah. I don't know if that would be busing, because that would require a lot of planning. I don't know. They could have been vans, could have been rental cars, could have been a bus, but it's tough. I mean, but that's the reality of the NLL that people also just don't be respectful of. Is that, like, for better or for worse, it's a league that involves international travel.
It involves international travel in this league, yeah.
Right, and your politics aside, we can all look at this and say this is not a good time to be traveling between the U.S. and Canada every weekend, and then doing so on short notice because of how the playoffs work. Logistics are bad in this league by the nature of the league, and the logistics are 100 times worse right now. So if you're a fan here, like, let's take our foot off the gas pedal of being frustrated by things, because, like, you can't charter a flight. It's not a thing you can do. So even if you have more money than God, that's something you can't do. So we just got to be patient with that and be respectful of the fact that like a lot of times things are not as clean as you prefer them to be, or they might be in the NFL, right? It's just a different world, and we got to acknowledge that.
Let's rewind before we get to Game 3 talk. I want to rewind you first of all to the Rochester game, because I know you had one of the best calls of the year when Rylan Hartley, I love and hate the guy at the same time, but this dude runs out the net and runs back to it. Take me through, because before the season started, we knew, okay, Seals are supposed to be good, we thought, like dominant, I thought. And then the Origlieri preseason firefighting stuff happened, but now we got him. And then Hartley shows up and does that. Take me through the roller coaster of emotions from this preseason to week 1 for you, or game 1.
I mean, admittedly, I didn't really check in on much until probably Thanksgiving. I work a pretty busy football season that runs into December. So for me, like that first game was the day after my last football game. So admittedly, my attention was a little bit split until we got to that Rochester game. I mean, like if you're asking about Hartley specifically, I mean, I can't think of a more, great play. I mean, really just an interesting player, because like it's really hard to not acknowledge that his ceiling is really high and his floor is really low. And like, it's just kind of strange to me. Like he does some things, especially with the ball in his stick, where you're like, no one taught you that. Where did you learn that? What, you know what I mean? It's interesting.
He's the epitome of crazy goalie.
But when he's good, he might be better than anyone else.
Yeah.
I think that he would be a really hard goalie to have be your lead goalie, right? Because like like Randy Mearns and previously Mike Hazen, like that's a tough gig, because your goalie might just be bad one game and he might just be great one game, and you are going to be held accountable accordingly in a way. Like, I don't know. That
was a great game for him, though. That one.
It was a spectacular game. I mean, they also didn't really need him to win that game by himself, because San Diego did not play well, and Rochester as a whole did play well. I mean, he didn't steal that game. They probably win that game even if he plays 80% as well. But interesting player who originally was drafted by San Diego, got hurt in a training camp, right after the draft, and it never really, it never panned out in being part of that. But it's kind of interesting that there are 3 guys in the NLL who are starters right now who either were drafted by San Diego or played their first years in San Diego. There's a pretty good history here of seeing goaltending talent, even if they're not hanging on to all these guys. But to your point, Rylan Hartley, entertaining to watch at the very least, and it might be tough to be a Rochester fan sometimes.
What I was just saying, like for the Seals' point of view of that, it's like the circus to start, like with just their goalie trying to figure out his life in general, and then seeing like you guys were, because you were 1-0 coming into that game beating Ottawa, but then like I look at the next part of the schedule, fall to 1-3, get back over 500. But I want to talk about the home stretch as well, because there was a stretch where I think you were on the Vancouver and Buffalo game for sure, and it was like you guys were playing all the heavy hitters, and all of them were within like 1 or 2 goals. How was that for you? Is it easier to see why San Diego's good now because of those games, you think?
I think it's interesting information, because every team says that they're tough, and every team says that they're mentally tested, and every team says that they played a hard schedule, right? Whether it's college football or the NLL or anybody. I think this is probably the best way to look at this is kind of like through the lens of if you're Patrick Merrill. And like, he hasn't said this to me, so I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I would guess this was the hardest year he's had as a head coach of the Seals.
Fair.
Because the results for most of the year didn't match both the internal expectations and also probably the expectations of the team. Like, I remember overhearing a conversation fairly early in the season between a player and a non-player, and the question was like, "Are you guys good?" And like the player's answer was like, "I think we are good." And like that stuck with me for most of the year, because like that's a guy who would not have said that if he didn't think it were true. But for a lot of the year, it was kind of like, I don't know if you're right about that. And then when it mattered, it turned out to be true, right? It's turned out to be true every time there was ample pressure and every time, it absolutely had to be true. And I think it's been a fascinating ride. I know in many ways it's been frustrating because every team in the league wants to win at home, and the Seals
historically
were one of the worst home league. Historically, they've been an excellent home team, and this year they were one of the worst home teams in the league. I gave this stat out a couple of weeks ago that they're only the second team. So in the last 10 years, there have been 22 teams that have lost at least 6 games at home, and only 2 of them have made the playoffs. San Diego being one of them this year, right? And so, they basically made this season as hard on themselves as they possibly could. And we talked about this in the broadcast early in the season when they played Calgary. And we said, going into the show at the very top of the broadcast, that it's early in the season, but this one feels a little bit like it has kind of a must-win energy, because if you look at the way that the schedule plays out, there are not a lot of wins on the schedule for San Diego down the stretch. If you look at the second half of their schedule, right? You look at the second half of the schedule compared to the first.
Whoa.
There were not a lot of games you were going to look at and say they'd be an easy favorite there. You're looking at best a lot of coin flips and at worst a lot of underdog situations, and that still kind of proved to be true, right? They went 8-10 in the regular season. It's not like
they were 2-6 their final 8 to your point. So
right, so they did need help to get into the playoffs, right? We don't talk about that because it came down to the last 2 weeks where they won back-to-back games and ultimately controlled their own destiny. But they got some help. Ottawa threw up on themselves. That didn't hurt. Rochester fell apart down the stretch of the season. That certainly helped. And I think though, holistically, it's been a really interesting season.
Absolutely.
To watch them, because it's been the opposite of everything that we've seen the 5 years that I've been a part of the games.
Their offense. But
ironically, right, they're now the closest that they've been since 2022 to getting to the place they haven't been before. And I'd argue that they're more well-equipped this time than they were that time, even though they were probably a better team. At least it had a better season. Maybe not a better team, but had a better season to that point. So it's an interesting illustration of sports are just whatever you expect them to be, you're probably going to be wrong. And if you just come into them with an open sense of, well, we'll see what happens, it can be really, really fun. And credit to the individuals involved, whether it's the Seals or whatever other team, who really do lean into the growth that can happen over 21 weeks of a regular season and go through those trials and tribulations. And coaches say it in every sport every year. We want to be playing our best at the end. We want to be peaking at the right time, and it's hard to argue that they're not peaking at the right time.
Battle test is a phrase I would use for sure. You guys have also seen the offense be up and down, a little bit down. I know Pat has talked about the lefties. Dylan Watson was awesome last game. Great for him. But going into game 3 now, as we get to our last point here, thank you for your time, by the way. How can the Seals take this battle-tested season of up and downs and really a roller coaster and getting the win at home finally? How can they use that in game 3? What do you think has to happen for this to be a thing?
I think that I'm hesitant to give you a how the game plays out kind of
thing.
I think it's as simple for them as, yes, they would like a situation like game 2 where they build a lead and control things early and, kind of like an anaconda, just slowly strangle the opponent. But I think what they would tell you is the only thing we care about is keeping the fight competitive into the fourth quarter. And that the longer the game goes, the more confident they are in their ability to not just, get better, but perform under pressure. And I think also they really do believe that, whether it's because these guys have, Trey LeClaire and Wesley Berg have come close and failed in the past in do or die game 3s, or the guys like, Ben McIntosh and Zach Currier and, having gone to the finals before and seen what it's like. I think that they do genuinely think that, I personally think that Toronto needed to win this series in 2 games. I think this going to game 3, even though it's in Toronto, definitely does start to tilt the who would you want to be meter a little bit more towards San Diego.
Worth it now.
And I think that aligns with who they've been. Right? I remember talking to Patrick before their final weekend when they were going to play Las Vegas at home, and I just asked him point blank, I was like, is this one of those situations where you're kind of just saying, we just got to get in and then everyone else is going to find out? And he said, yeah, I'd like to think so. And I think that's been true, right? Like, it's kind of, Halifax is similar, right? Just get in and then everyone will see, because this league is a really cruel league because it's so close, right? The 1-2 goal games, it just as quickly as it can be a strength all season, it can turn into a disaster at the wrong time. And that was true for Vancouver, right? You know, like that's, I hate to see it, but like that's how it works out sometimes. And you know, I think going into this game 3, I think the message is just going to be simple as just keep this game going as long as we can keep it going. If that means building an early lead and trying to close it out late, I'm sure they would be happy. I think that they expect this game to be tied 10-10 or 11-11 out of the final media timeout, where the last 4.5 minutes are going to decide their season. I think that's probably what they expect. And honestly, I think that's probably what they would choose. If they got to choose what it would look like, I think they'd probably take that, because I think they're most confident in that kind of scenario.
Yeah.
It'll be really interesting, right? Because Toronto has this blend of guys who have come close and frankly, just they're really experienced at losing when it matters.
I know.
And then they have also a young contingent who have been winners in other places, but also, you know, you wonder what that mental situation looks like in a game 3, right? Because like Ashley Docking gave a great report on like the young guys and their winning experience and how, you know, there are no nerves or anything. That's really easy in game 1. That's really easy in game 1. It's really easy in game 2 when you're up 1-0.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that started to change about halfway through the third quarter when the Rock realized they probably weren't going to win that game. And I think that's when
sticky.
That's when the stick gripping gets a little tighter. But as I've said before, and I will say again, I don't know anything. Neither do you, and neither does anyone. Inside these locker rooms or outside of it, this game could go a million different ways, and none of them should be surprising. I think that's the ultimate takeaway of the NLL, and especially this playoff season. This game could go a billion directions, and you're going to be wrong when you guess, and that's just how it is.
Polar bears are good at what they do and cool, but I don't know how they do it. The odds makers everywhere. If this game was in San Diego, I would love it though, because if it was tied, we'd hear a Wesley Berg from Cooper, but not this time. Next time though.
Yeah, you guys are done with me for the year. For better or for worse, for the Toronto fans, I'm sure they'll be thrilled, and enjoy you guys. Whatever it is, just have fun with it.
Well, we always appreciate you, Cooper. First and only time probably this year, but we do appreciate you. Whatever comes next, we love what you do with the Seals and the NLL, and happy future endeavors, Mr. Sir.
I appreciate it, Mike. Thanks for everything. You do a great job, and just keep it rolling. You got a couple more weeks. Show's good.
Woo! Thank you, Cooper. Hey, man, I have to admit, the Seals story, the Nick Osella story was all time. So I do appreciate him for that. And going over the time that I told him I was going to go. So I also feel bad for that. But what a season for the Seals. And I feel like I should give them more credit for that, because the emotional roller coaster. All right, folks, when we come back, all the awards finalists were announced. I'm going to talk about them. I can't give you my winners, but I'm going to talk about maybe folks that did not make my ballot. And, of course, those 2 awards that we did not vote on. And stay tuned for what's next for Philadelphia Wings as we start our tradition here of how teams can make it to the playoffs. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Dilly Dive.
You're listening to North American Talk Radio, the all-new talk radio station featuring sports, movies, politics, mental health, and more. Check us out at natalkradio.com and subscribe today. Buy event tickets straight from our website to help the cause and get tickets to your favorite events for less. That's natalkradio.com. Thanks for listening. You're listening to North American Talk Radio, the all-new talk radio station featuring sports, movies, politics, mental health, and more. Check us out at natalkradio.com and subscribe today. Buy event tickets straight from our website to help the cause and get tickets to your favorite events for less. That's natalkradio.com. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back here to Daily Dive on Wednesday, May the 6th, 2026. It's 1:42 on the East Coast. We appreciate you for tuning in. And again, thank you to Cooper Perkins for his time and his season calling the Seals. He's now done for the year, but hey, we appreciate him as always. Thank you to Pechanga Arena. Ah, jeez. All right. Stay tuned for what's next for the Philadelphia Wings, but for now, let's get into this. The awards finalists and my reaction to them. Now, I've told you guys before, I was thankfully an awards voter this year. I will unveil my ballots when these things are officially finalized, but for now, we got to be careful. That being said, I can still react to them and give you guys that made the finalists that did not make my ballot, or just the awards in general. Also, Teammate of the Year and Executive of the Year, we can talk about that one, so that's cool. All righty. Here it is. Let's get it on screen. The first one we'll do is Teammate of the Year here. Cameron Dunkley. I said it before, so awesome and so kind of ironic here that Cameron Dunkley, after the season that he had, was able to make this thing. And I swear it feels like, I think the PA votes on this before the season ends. So cool to see him on there. Robert Hope as well. Luke Magnan from the Black Bears. I don't know who's going to win it. I'll go Robert Hope. Again, I don't know. I don't play, obviously, but shout out to those guys. Just want to give my quick thoughts on that. Next up, sportsmanship. Now, we did have a vote on this. Like Cooper said, it's a little bit interesting because we don't know. I will say for sportsmanship, 2 of my 3 made the list here. On my top 5, Kyle Buchanan, Ryan Keenan, and Jeff Teets. I did have all 3 of those guys on my 5. I will not tell you which order, but I will say that all 3 of these guys were in my final 5. So good for them. Just for the record, like Jeff Teets seems like a guy who gets blasted every play. And from a fan's point of view or media point of view, doesn't seem to be ever mad or ever fighting. Ryan Keenan, always cerebral, always with the, like every time I watch him give an interview, super transparent with his time. Kyle Buchanan, another guy, a little water bug, can be feisty, but still is not temperamental from what I can tell. So good for him. Comments here. Dallas Elliott says, way to go, Mike. Both Cuban Pat. Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, I've been transparent on Twitter and just in general. Cooper is awesome on the Seals games, man. Him and Nick are electric. Him and Eric are awesome as well. So big shout out to the Seals team, man. Do a good job. Next up, Coach of the Year, Ed Cuomo, Pat Coyle, Kurt Malosky, the finalists here. I will say that, let me just get to it to make sure. I did have Cuomo and I had Coyle. I did not have Malosky on the top 5. Now, I will explain my reasoning for that because I felt like the Warriors, they got the number 1 seed, but it was kind of like, how much of that was the rush falling apart? How much of that was, I feel like the roster they had they should have been a bigger juggernaut. I know, it was a new, coming together, but they had played in Calgary, and I just don't know if I think Les Bartley Coach of the Year, by the way. I just don't know if I would give Malosky. Again, I had guys on there, and again, I'll unveil my 5, but for now, Malosky was not on my list. You guys know I've had Cuomo and Coyle up there all year. I think both those guys did great. Coyle didn't have Q for a few games, a handful of games. Didn't have Jack Hanna. Ed Cuomo had a bunch of rookies and relied on the defense, and the offense stepped up late, so that's awesome to hear as well. I'm interested to see who did get the win, though. General Manager of the Year. Another one, kind of confusing for me. I did have Jimmy Dowick. I did have Kurt Malosky, and I did have Brad Self. So all 3 of these guys did make my list. I will not say where, but shout out to these guys. Again, Jimmy Dowick. Drafting the Rock rookies has to matter. Even though we don't know, is it more coaching that they were that good? They were good immediately. 3 of them were, and then of course Hugh Kelleher was awesome, and others as well. Kurt Malosky, of course, brought in the Vancouver superstars that he did, so good for him there. Brad Self, again, traded for Jack Hanna, had Andrew Q, and got rid of Connor Kelly, who played no games for Georgia, I believe. Had a couple of rookies who were awesome, including Pilato, including Braden Saris, so good for him as well. Comments here. Let's see here. Jesse, I think a new commenter, I think. How the Thunderbirds not have any finalists? I had at least one Thunderbird on my list. I think maybe 2. Well, it might be. I actually had 3 I had 3 Thunderbirds technically, but finalists. Yeah, I think the Rush also had no finalists. So good point there by Jesse. Dallas says I've seen Dunkerley steal games for the Riptide, and that was another thing with Dunkerley. Another story for another day is with the Riptide. Their defense did not have Callum Jones, I don't think, when he was there. And I'll check that. I'm a little bit off topic here, but I'm pretty sure that he was not there. I'm pretty sure his first year was with Ottawa. Let me make sure. I lied. He was there, but still, he was a rookie. So there you go. I can't answer this question yet, just because I was a voter, but the answer, without saying it, is Thunderbirds deserve more love, if that helps you. All right, next up. Tom Barilli, Media Person of the Year. This is the one where once you're in the voting process, you're I don't like doing this, even though I have my takes on it. I will say all 3 of these did make my top 5 as well. Ashley Docking, I still think the story of her hopping on the bird just to talk to that big clock girl, whatever her name is, with The Rock, that was amazing. Her storytelling is always fantastic. She does great reporting as well. And on social media does a good job. Mackie Jenner always crushes things with the birds. Hopped on this show. I think did a good job given the circumstances with her play-by-play. Graham Perro, a guy who I've said broadcasters use that website so much. He's always on Twitter interacting with the fans, answering their questions, even if they ask the same thing a million times. Good for Graham Perro. I think all 3 of these people are deserving. Next up, Executive of the Year. Another one the media did not vote on, and I believe the Vancouver guy won it last year. So Dallas Equilini, I don't think Dax was the guy last year. I could be wrong. Dan Carey also and Jonah Haas. My pick for this would be Jonah Haas. I think the Dogs really did a great job selling out the barn this year. And we can say, oh, it's Joe Tsai. Seal's attendance checks out. This team went to Henderson, and Jonah Haas had them packing it, electric fans. I think Vancouver's got an argument for this, but I still feel like Jonah Haas had that place buzzing. I know there's other things to say there, which is why probably media don't vote on it, but good for Jonah. And Jesse says, let's go, Mackie. Big Birds guy. I love the Birds fans. We have so many Birds fans that chime in here. But no, Jonah Haas would be my pick if we had to vote on this thing. Probably a good thing we don't, though. All right, next up, goaltender of the year. Now, Del Bianco was on my list. Brett Dobson was on my list, and was Dylan Ward. Just quick things on these guys. Del Bianco maybe should have gotten more love than even I gave him or anybody gave him this year, because the Warriors' offense was good, but I told you guys it wasn't great. And I feel like Del Bianco, some games, had to really hold down the fort, so good for him. He's always going to be in the top 5 for the record. Like, it's not rocket science. Brett Dobson, another one. Was he the goalie of the year all year? Was he the MVP? He was awesome. Now, if you're a media person, did you separate most valuable with goaltender? Could you do that? I don't know. Dylan Ward had a really strong start to the year. Things got a little bit wishy-washy, but I feel like he had another solid year. Next up. So I agree with all these, by the way. Next up. What is this? Make sure I didn't skip one. Okay. Offensive player of the year. Make sure I got this right as well. I did have Keegan Ball. I did have Andrew Kuhn. I did have Dane Smith. There we go. Keegan Ball obviously dominated the Vancouver Warriors on offense. Was an MVP candidate, rightfully so. Keegan Ball, when Vancouver needed a bucket, he was your guy. Andrew Q, I told you, he only played 12 games, but was so good. I showed you guys that he finished with, of the players in NLL history that have scored 40 goals in a season, he had the 3rd highest shooting percentage in terms of shots on goal. And the first 2 guys are named John Tavares. It's the same person. So 3rd greatest season of all time in terms of shooting percentage with that much volume. Good for Q. And then, of course, Dane Smith. Again, offensive player of the year. Primary assist, you guys know I'm a big fan of that. Dane Smith also scored goals, was very clutch late. I feel like if they don't add a clutch player of the year, I think I might do that next year. But Dane Smith was clutch this year when it counted, especially down the stretch there. Defensive player of the year. These guys get love too. Full transparency, Ryan Dilks did not make my top 5. Callum Jones did. So did Brad Cree. For Ryan Dilks, I will just focus on the fact that good for him. I feel like there was 5 guys better. But again, maybe if you wanted to throw the rookie Michael Grace in there, maybe you didn't think Michael Grace was that deserving. I don't know. I would love to see people's ballots once this is finalized, but he was not on my top 5 anyways. Callum Jones was obviously, he was electric. Now he kind of fell off towards the end, but he was awesome all year. And of course, Brad Cree was probably the best rock defender on a team of defenders, so good for him. I forgot the answer to this. If someone else in the chat, they can chime in as well. I'm going to scroll back and see if I can find that for you quickly here. I think I found it. They will be announced. Where is it at? During the week of the 2026 NLL Finals. So I don't know if that is the opening weekend. I would assume it would be, because I think they said, what is it? May 15th. So after, my guess would be next week. There we go. PK and Phil. Let's go. I don't know if there's a 3rd guy still with you guys, but I know PK and Phil. Good. Thank you, sirs. But yeah. Transition player of the year. Zach Currier. I told you guys. Now, he did not make my top 5. We'll explain shortly. Sam English did, as did Jordan McIntosh. Now, here's the thing, guys. It's not a knock on Zach Currier. I named him my best 2-way player, all right? In terms of my separate awards thing that I've already done. I just feel like it's a little bit unfortunate that he might have stolen some votes from other people. He played a lot of forward. I feel like there's an award that we should name after him. And I don't think transition is fair to him. He is so much more than that. Now, he might win this. I don't know. Didn't make my top 5, but him being a finalist makes me curious. So, again, it's not a knock on Curry. It's just a knock on the, what does this mean? I guarantee you everyone else has their own definition of what this should be. So there you go. But Sam English was awesome. There was a late push for him for Rookie of the Year which I'll get to shortly, but Sam English was on my top 5 for transition. He was really good all year. Very smart with the ball. Very good on offense when he had to be. Could stay on defense. Jordan McIntosh, another one. There was a few guys on Georgia who were great, but McIntosh obviously stood out. Well, I believe he had like 10. What was it? 10 goals for McIntosh? I forgot. He had a lot of, like, these were like all like breakaway stuff too. Yeah, 10 goals, 22 assists. Unbelievable for Jordan McIntosh. Good for him. They're buzzing in Georgia. Rookie of the year. Woof. Listen, man. It's wild. Let me get you a comment here. Oh, yeah. Hey, here's a moment. Here's a good moment here. Hold on. Wait for it. Wait for it. I feel like that deserved that. And I like to be not like biased with people, but those guys, like especially like media people, those guys do a great job. And I want to give them credits because they do have a lot of heavy hitters on that show. They've come on my show multiple times. I've been doing this show for 4 years. They started a year before me. So that's awesome. PK and Phil commit to the bit. They also have good work on social media. So really that deserved that. Thank you, Pat, for saying that in the chat. Troy says, Jonesy. I'm going to call him Jones. Extra chocolate milk. That's awesome. Oh, man. But for back to Rookie of the Year, listen, man. I think Teddy Jenner, like for the record, obviously it goes without saying all of these guys are on my list. Like, duh. Like, really? Yeah. I think Teddy Jenner, without giving away too much, I'm actually a little bit shocked that the general most of the media had obviously 2 of the 3 be Swarm players. Now you guys know based on what I saw on the show, I see the argument for this, but there was a lot of loud people who said it should have been Sam English or Owen Hiltz, even though he kind of dropped off late. But I told you guys as well, Nolan Byrne, I feel like what he did, the late season push, I think is what got him in there. I'm going to guess it's CJ1, Michael Grace 2, and Nolan Byrne 3. Not saying that's my list by any means. I just think that Michael Grace was always in Defensive Player of the Year contention from what I think I gathered. And I think Nolan Byrne, his late season surge, helped a lot. Again, I'm not saying from my perspective, I think that's what helped him. So I could see maybe he did usurp, maybe he did jump a Sam English. I don't know. And I wonder if we're going to find out what the entire vote tally was. But I am curious to see if Nolan Byrne, if he finishes 3rd or if he did jump up to 2nd. Dare I say 1st? Just saying. Most valuable player. Last one of the list. Troy, real quick, I'll get his comment first. Dan McCray. Yeah, I get that. Now, for the record, Troy, Dan McCray did crack my top 5, if that's not too transparent, but yeah, I feel like it was his to lose. And for at least he was up there, at least in my opinion. And then you're right. So good comment there. MVP. I did have Keegan Ball. We all had Brett Dobson, and I did not have Dane Smith actually. I'm okay with my MVP top 5, which again I'll unveil next week as they come out. But Dane Smith, I mean, what he did late was awesome. And there was a little bit of moving parts on the offense. They had to adjust their offense. Their defense had to adjust. Matt Vince was good all year, but not great all year. And I think that Dane Smith, if you're going to give Buffalo credit again, I could see him. I get this. I don't agree with this because he's not in my top 5, obviously. But I understand. I understand. Troy adds, until the end of the year, he was an honorable mention or 4th or 5th place. Yeah. He was top 3 a lot for me. But again, I'll unveil that next week. All right. So what did you guys take away from the awards? What is your take on Teammate of the Year and Exec of the Year? I know, I mean, we shouldn't ever have a comments on teammates. I believe Jonah Haas of the Desert Dogs deserves a lot of credit. So, yeah. When we come back, I'm going to have a very fun segment here that I don't think you guys are ready for, but it's going to be like this for the next couple of weeks until the show ends, obviously, for season 4. But coming up next, we're doing What's Next, Philadelphia Wings. Why is it called What's Next? If you're an OG of the show, I think you know where I'm going with that What's Next thing. Wink, rawr. But we'll talk about it next. And what can the Philadelphia Wings do as a franchise in a roster to get to the playoffs? Don't go anywhere. We both know you won't.
You're listening to North American Talk Radio, the all-new talk radio station featuring sports, movies, politics, mental health, and more. Check us out at natalkradio.com and subscribe today. Buy event tickets straight from our website to help the cause and get tickets to your favorite events for less. That's natalkradio.com. Thanks for listening.
Again, we want to thank Cooper Perkins for joining the show earlier. We know he's on West Coast time, I believe. So thank you for him for joining, giving us more of the time. I told him 20 minutes, and God bless it, I went over, but he was awesome. He was a great Nick Ocello story, and also talked about San Diego Seals, and they could win Game 3. He seemed like he kind of liked the Seals in Game 3. We'll have to see. We also get to our awards finalist reaction. I believe next week they will announce the winners, so we're excited for that. And what was your take? Let us know on social media at Dilly Dive LAX. Now, our next segment, and thank you for the comments as well, by the way, so far today. If you are a first-time viewer, you won't really get this joke. I mean, maybe it's not really a joke, but if you're an OG of this show, you know I poked fun at this on multiple topics, and I thought, how can I honor this team even though they're not here anymore? Jesse says, I'm really pumped to be in the nest. Oh, that's awesome, dude. Are you going to be there for Game 3 as well, or is that Game 3? I forgot. Why do I not remember that? Let me get to it real quick. He's in the comment before I try to figure this out. But Game 2 is, it's Saturday game. Okay, so Game 3 Sunday. Interesting. Woo! Game 3 Sunday is crazy. Anyways, all right. Sleepy Sunday. It's like, all right. So, again, we're calling this segment What's Next? And in case you're wondering, yes, that is the Panther City Twitter header, okay? And this is no shot at the NLL team and the players that were there. It's a shot at the owners who are the Philadelphia Wings that are, screw you for choosing the WNBA. That being said, we're going to use this in good fun, all right? So, and there you go. Until the end of the season, we're going to be doing a What's Next of teams that missed the playoffs and even didn't win the championship. How can they get back, all right? We're talking the Philadelphia Wings, first of all, because obviously they were the last place team. Philadelphia Wings in 2026 finished the season 5-13. They were outscored by a league worst 35 goals. They finished with 165 goals for and 200 against. They were 3-6 at home. Shout out. 2-7 on the road. The Wings this season, here were their wins. Week 1, funny enough, against the Colorado Mammoth. At Buffalo in week 11. At Georgia versus Toronto, and at Vegas. I wish almost, okay, I lied. I'm glad they beat Vegas. But can you guys imagine if the Wings had only beaten playoff teams? That had to have been a record. But Vegas did not make the playoffs, so that's unfortunate. But 4 of their 5 wins were against the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme. All right? Too many cream jokes. Ugh. Wow. But stats this season for the record. We're not done with this. Brian O'Neill, hey, 67 points. I know we're not doing that anymore. He led the way. Joe Rez was still in second place to 45 points. That's insane. Sam LeClaire at 42. Folks, the Wings were, this is unbelievable. Is this a record? Their top 2 point getters, if you, can you include Joe Rez? I don't know. Like, of guys that finished the season, their top 2 point getters combined for 109 points. That is really, really bad. Oh, my God. I mean, you want to say Joe Rez counts, then their top 2 guys combined for 112. But, oh, my Lord, that is terrible. Anyways. Leader in loose balls was Alex Pace with 126. Calls turnovers, Ryan Wagner had 15. Block shots, 16 for Ryan Wagner. Face-off, Bo Columbus, the rookie, was good. They then thought trading Nick Rowlett was a good idea, so he only got better as the season went on, which is annoying. They also have a guy by the name of Michael Sowers. Only played in 8 games, but he had 27 points in those 8 games. Not too shabby, should I say. But how can they make the playoffs? Well, unfortunately, step 1 here is going to be a new owner. I hate that. I absolutely hate that. But we're going at this in the fact that they are still a 14th franchise next season. So, hello? Wait, I'm getting a call. Yes? Okay, thank you. Yeah, no one's calling. That was a fake call. We haven't heard anything yet. Is it bad that I'm hearing more about the, I won't say who, but is it bad that I'm hearing more about other teams being moved besides that's not good. It's not good. It's not great. I still can't do a Trump impression. But no, I feel like the Wings, the new owners, obviously the layup take there. Next up, new arena, which is kind of like the new owner. How about if they are a thing? Folks, did you know the Wings have the number 1 draft pick if they're a franchise? I mean, how much help does Brian O'Neill need? I'm just saying. I think Brian O'Neill, I don't, even if they're not local, for the sake of this roster, because I hate when Panther City went away, for the sake of this roster, I would love to see the growth if Brian O'Neill gets paired up with another number 1 pick. Who would they choose? Interesting. I also find it interesting that Paul Day, the GM, I've actually liked this moves that he's made, even though it didn't mean anything. I think Paul Day, I'm curious to see what he would do. I think that the number 1 pick, I think it should be an offensive player based on the numbers that we have, but we'll see. Or isn't it should be an offensive player? How about the fact that the Wings have a goalie controversy? All right. Now, what I was going to say about Paul Day, and I forgot, now I remembered it again. Paul Day, he kept, I don't know why this is not working. Paul Day kept Nick Damoud to the trade deadline. Excuse me. And in my opinion, if he's going to do that, maybe he thought that there was a chance they stay, or that like they're still a roster intact. Like, you don't just keep a guy when you have a Deacon Knott. And that's what's confusing to me. So Deacon Knott, the Wings are going to have to decide if they are a franchise next year in whatever capacity. If this roster's together, this front office, etc., they're going to have to figure out very quickly who their guy is. Because I don't think Deacon Knott should wait another year. This guy was drafted second round, 38th overall in 2022. He's 23. I know he's still young, but this guy's gotten some play time under his belt. He's up to 569 career minutes. It's not a lot, but I feel like if he's that good, which I think he could be, why are we waiting? Like, give this guy a chance. And whether it be with this roster or another roster. Come on now. Here's another thing. Draft order, I'm looking at it again. The Wings also, I believe, have, according to swarmitup.com, they've got a comp pick in the first round as well, towards the end of it, obviously. So there you go. They also have a second round pick as well. But I think it's interesting. So Wings got another draft pick. And again, please, like, the goalie problem you have to figure that out. Have to. And finally, again, all of this seems like it's just to help them stay afloat. If they add an awesome offensive player with the number one pick, and another one, or a good defensive player with the next pick, if they get a new owner and a new arena, if they figure out Nick Damude and Deacon Knott dynamic, and if they can add some free agent or somebody, they may not be that far away. Again, I told you guys, they won 5 games being miserable. I told you guys all year that they were on the way out. And so the fact that Joe Tsai pimped them out, or rented the team, better term, the fact that he did that, the Wings knew everything was falling apart. They still won 5 games is pretty awesome. I don't know if they're that far away from making the playoffs. But finally, coaching and GM. I think I like Ian Rubel. I love Tracy Kolofsky. I know that. I know he was good with this is so bad. He was good with Panther City. Sorry. But who is their coach next year? If let's say they go to Edmonton, let's say they go to anywhere, let's say they go local, does that new ownership keep this coach? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. I don't know. What about Paul Day? Guys, I have been on record saying I've actually liked Paul Day's moves. All right? He's gotten stuff back. And again, you take the caveat of Paul. I'm not saying Paul Day's the greatest GM. There's a lot of Wings fans that honestly, I don't know if they hate him, but the thing that's underneath hate, that's the way they feel about Paul Day. I see it all the time in the comment section. I know, shout out, Philadelphia fans hate their team. I understand. They're very vocal. They get a little bit disrespectful for no reason. I get that. But I think Paul Day, considering the circumstances, really punched back pretty good. They, again, won 5 games knowing how bad it's gotten the last 2 years. They had no Mitch Jones this year because he wanted to go. They had Brandon O'Neill, dealt with Michael Sowers, will he play, will he won't play, dealt with Nick Damude and Deacon Knott dynamic, dealt with the fact that Brandon O'Neill was the only guy left, traded Joe Rez. They know things were falling apart, and they still won 5 games. So while hope seems lost, all I'm asking the NLL to do is find an owner. And one of my hottest takes for season 5 might just end up being, depending on how the offseason goes, I'll call them the Wings make the playoffs next year. And I feel like those odds on cool bets will be so goddamn delicious. I'm begging the Polar Bears to let me eat next year. Again, all it takes is a new owner. and watch what happens. No one wants to admit it. I want to say I've been saving that take for this moment. I have not been. But I feel like I just talked myself into that take. Like, why can't they make the playoffs? Like, again, step one is the new owner. And after that, c'est la vie. I think I used that correctly. I don't know. Thanks for watching today's show, everybody. Tomorrow, we have a new guest coming on the show. We'll not say who it is yet until time comes. But thank you again to Cooper. Thank you to the folks that commented. And thank you to our live viewers and our replay viewers and the people that interact with us on social media at Daily Dive LAX. We will remind you that we're back tomorrow once again. Same time, same place. North American Talk Radio on YouTube channel, 1 o'clock Eastern. Until that moment, y'all have fun, debate the awards, have a great rest of your day. I am Michael Karvelis. This has been Daily Dive. Bye.